Guys, cash is king, and President Trump is not a businessman. He is a business, man. Remember that, guys. That's the only thing that you need to take away from President Trump's tax returns, quote unquote, being exposed by the New York Times this weekend. Now, I'm telling you guys right off the bat, this is nothing. This is literally nothing at all. Because I don't know if you guys know, but my background is in investments and in financial services. And to be in investments and financial services, you need to understand just a little bit about accounting, right? Now, I'm not an accountant, but I can tell you right now that every article that you've read about Trump's tax returns are not written by anybody who actually understands anything about accounting at all, or how this stuff actually works. And it is so obvious that it is being written in a way to really try to bring down the president and to try to expose him rather than to actually tell the whole story. And I guarantee you, any accountant that you talk to is going to tell you that there's nothing really shady going on about Donald Trump's tax returns. He is literally taking advantage of the quote-unquote tax loopholes that the IRS allows. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what businessmen do. And ultimately, Trump is a business in and of itself, given how much he's built up his brand, right? And once you understand that and you start to look at it, you understand, okay, guys, this is normal stuff, and Trump is literally doing what he needs to do and what is in the best interest of him, his family, and his business, which is what literally 99.999% of all Americans would do if they were in his position. Is try to pay as little money as possible to the government, because taxation is theft. But before we get into that, my name is Greg Foreman, and you're watching A Black Conservative Perspective. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Again, hit that subscribe button. Let's get it. So I'm going to pull up this article from Market Watch. It's a summary of President Trump's tax returns, and I'm going to break down to you, with my knowledge, why this is BS and why it does not matter, right? And this is literally nothing. It tells us nothing about the financial health of President Trump personally or his businesses. It literally says nothing. So I'm going to explain to you guys why. So just follow along. These are 5 takeaways from this New York Times article that I want to go over and explain to you guys why this is literally nothing. So Trump paid just $750 in taxes in both 2016 and 2017. The newspaper said Trump initially paid $95 million in taxes over the 18 years it studied, but he managed to recover most of the money by claiming and receiving a $72.9 million federal tax refund. According to the Times, Trump also pocketed $21.2 million in state and local refunds, which are typically based on federal filings. So basically, he overpaid on his taxes, and then he wanted to get his money back from the government, just like all of us do, because letting the government just hold our money for a year is an interest-free loan to the government. Trump's outsized refund became the subject of a now long-standing Internal Revenue Service audit of his finances. The audit was widely known. Trump has claimed it was the very reason why he cannot release his returns, but the Times report it is the first to identify the issue that was mainly in dispute. As a result of the refund, Trump paid an average of $1.4 million in federal taxes from 2000 to 2017. The Times reported, by contrast, the average U.S. taxpayer in the top 0.001% of earners paid about $25 million annually over the same time frame. Again, guys, this means nothing. Number one reason is the audit between Trump and the IRS is between Trump and the IRS. That's who it's between. It's not between anybody else, right? Now, if Trump took some illegal deductions or did something that he should not have done on his tax returns, that's for the IRS to determine, not the New York Times. So it doesn't matter how much he paid in comparison to other top earners in the United States, because they may have their businesses set up differently than the way Trump has his businesses. These are, again, this is common sense stuff, guys. It doesn't take a genius to figure out. It literally means nothing. Whatever the IRS finds, if Trump did something wrong, then he may have to pay a fine for it. But until then, you shouldn't be making claims on this type of stuff, especially if you are not going to show his income statement, balance sheet, and statement of cash flows, right? If you ask anybody in financial services how to evaluate the financial health of a company, you have to be able to see the income statement, the balance sheet, and the cash flow statement. This is why we say that cash is king. Cash is king. That is a complete picture of a company's financial health. Without that information, it doesn't matter what his net income or how much he paid in taxes is, because that doesn't necessarily give us the whole story regarding the financial health of his company. Anybody with a basic background in financial services or accounting and investments can tell you that. But again, the people that write this stuff, and I'm not saying Market Watch is, because Market Watch is, investing and finance related. That's why it's not really, it doesn't seem to be as opinion oriented as some of these other hit pieces. That's why I chose this. But anybody with a basic knowledge of that could tell you that. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper into it as we keep going. Trump has financed an extravagant lifestyle with the use of business expenses from his homes, his aircraft, and $70,000 on hair styling during his television show, The Apprentice. Trump has capitalized on costs incurred from his businesses to finance a luxurious lifestyle. The Times noted that Trump's home, planes, and golf courses are part of the Trump family business, and as such, Trump classified them as business expenses as well, because companies can write off business expenses as deductions. All such expenses have helped reduce Trump's tax liability. Perfectly normal stuff, guys. Perfectly normal. Oh, he paid $70,000 for a haircut or hairstyling. Well, if if he's getting a haircut for a show, a television show, which is a part of his business, that is technically a business expense because it was incurred as a necessary cost of his business. He's not gonna go on TV with nappy hair, guys. So everything that he has to pay for in reference to his looks are a part of his business. That, again, this is simple stuff. And again, we all know, guys, if you have a home office or something like that, you can write off certain expenses that are associated with the business. The average American can do this if they run a business in their home. For example, this mic, this camera, the light that I'm using, all business expenses for my YouTube channel. These are things that technically I can write off because they are a necessary cost for me to run my business. Again, this is not hard stuff. This is simple stuff that everybody can take advantage of if you understand just some basics of taxes. And they're trying to act like Trump's doing shady stuff that everybody can't do. And again, Trump is probably paying millions of dollars for the best accountants he can find to do his finances. He's not doing it himself personally. So again, if you really want to point the finger at somebody, don't point the finger at President Trump. Point the finger at his accountants. If anything, you should be asking, how can I get hooked up with his accountants? That's what you should be asking. How can you save me some money? Many of his best-known businesses are money losers. The president has frequently pointed to his far-flung hotels, golf courses, and resorts as evidence of his success as a developer and businessman, yet these properties have been draining money. The Times reported that Trump has claimed $315 million in losses since 2000 on his golf courses, including the Trump National Doral near Miami, which Trump has portrayed as a crown jewel in his business empire. Likewise, his Trump International Hotel in Washington has lost $55 million, the Times reported. Again, this is just garbage. And I'm surprised Market Watch would even write something like this without giving a detailed explanation of where these losses might come from. There's a difference between a cash loss and a tax loss, guys. There's this thing called EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. What the Times is probably talking about when they're talking about Trump's losses is probably EBIT, which is earnings before interest and taxes. Now, EBIT is when all the non-cash expenses have been deducted out. And this is before you have to pay taxes. And this is how we get to this point, guys. In net income, which is what comes after taxes are taken out. And I'm sure a lot of you guys already know this, but this is just for the liberals that come to my videos. I'm going to give you a quick little accounting lesson really quick. There are non-cash expenses such as depreciation, for example. There's also other ones as well that can help deduct from your tax liability. For example, Trump has a lot of physical assets and properties. These properties depreciate in value over time. That is a cost, a non-cash cost / expense to his business. The IRS allows you to deduct that from your earnings before you pay taxes. That is why it decreases your tax liability. And there's multiple ways in which you can depreciate an asset. This is stuff that's not being mentioned when talking about the financial health of Trump's companies. And that's why I said at the beginning of this video that you cannot really give an informed opinion about Trump's financial health personally or his businesses without actually seeing all three of those documents. Because just because you're losing money on paper for tax purposes doesn't necessarily mean you're losing cash. Those are two different things. That's why having the statement of cash flows is important. That's why having the balance sheet is important. You can't just look at the income statement and come to a conclusion on what the health of his businesses are, because the income statement doesn't tell you the whole story. And the people that are writing on this obviously have no idea what they're talking about. They don't. And that's why I'm very critical to New York Times, because if you're going to release this hit piece, you might as well just release everything. Release everything, let the accountants look at it and tell you, okay, what is Trump doing something shady? Oh, Trump's losing money. You know, X, Y, and Z. Let them tell you that. Don't try to take basic information and try to misconstrue what it actually means to try to paint this picture that President Trump is somehow broke. Remember, guys, President Trump is not even taking a salary. What did President get paid, like $400,000 a year? Trump's not even taking a salary. If he was so broke as these liberals and these Democrats like to try to imply that he is, like he's some type of sham businessman and that he doesn't really have any money and he's broke. If he was so broke, why is he not taking the $400,000 a year salary that he gets as president? Why is he donating it? Again, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. Y'all claim this man is so shady and that he's so broke, but yet he's not taking a salary. You know, Trump might be asset rich and he might be cash poor. I think that's probable, but that doesn't mean he's poor. That's not what it means. However, there are certain ways you can set up your businesses in which you can take advantage of certain tax loopholes and tax shelters. And it's very obvious that President Trump has mastered that. And honestly, and you can look this stuff up, like straight line depreciation. There's other ways you can do it. The IRS allows this stuff, guys. This is stuff that the IRS allows. Again, it's nothing shady. It's just simple stuff. If you just understand the basics, you will easily come to the conclusion that he's just doing what he's allowed to do. Foreign visitors have helped support Trump's properties. Since Trump began his presidential run, lobbyists, foreign governments, and politicians have spent significant sums of money on his properties, a spending spree that raised concerns about the property and legality. The Times report illustrates just how much that spending has been. Since 2015, his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida has taken in $5 million more a year from a surge in membership. The Billy Graham Evangelistic Association spent at least $397,602 in 2017 at Trump's Washington hotel. Overseas projects have produced millions more for Trump. $3 million from the Philippines, $2.3 million from India, and $1 million from Turkey. Again, not really saying much there, right? We can imply that, okay, well, if he's president of the United States and you have more people and he becomes more popular, more people know of him, more people know about his properties. Again, Trump brags about it all the time. Maybe more people are just spending more time on his properties. He just happens to have the setup where his presidency may benefit his business in virtue of him just being president of the United States. That's just how it is. But Trump, in and of itself, he's detached from his businesses while he's president of the United States. Trump will face financial pressure as debts come due. Trump seems sure to face heavy financial pressures from the enormous pile of debt he has absorbed. The Times said that the president appears to be responsible for 421 million in loans, which most of which will come due within 4 years. On top of that, $100 million mortgage on Trump Tower in New York will come due in 2022. Again, you can't make a definitive statement on this unless you can look at his balance sheet. Unless you take a look at the balance sheet to see his assets versus his liabilities, you can't make a definitive statement on this, guys. And again, without releasing that information, without having that information in front of people, you can't come to a conclusion on whether or not Trump is going to be able to pay back his debt. That's a personal problem for President Trump. And there's no reason for us to sit here and speculate on something like this when we don't have all the information we need to come to a real conclusion on it. You're just throwing out numbers that seem bad, but you're not giving all the information to tell the complete story. And that is what is happening here. So like I've demonstrated here, guys, that this is nothing, guys. This is BS. This is just another hit piece from the liberal media trying to bring down the president on unfounded claims, not releasing all the information, not telling the whole story, and trying to trick the American people because they think that you are dumb. They think that you're dumb, that you can't do your own research, and that you can't figure out this information for yourself. And these politicians, especially Democrat politicians, the same ones that are complaining about President Trump taking advantage of tax laws are the same ones that are doing it themselves. They're the same ones that are doing it themselves, and they're the same ones that help write these tax laws and put these loopholes in place in the first place that President Trump took advantage of. And these politicians who claim to be so upset about Trump not paying taxes, quote unquote, should change the tax code or shut up, because otherwise you help contribute to that. Change the tax code if you don't like it, but they're not going to do it because they take advantage of it just as much as he took advantage of it. President Trump was not a politician his whole life. President Trump was a businessman. It was his responsibility to try to make as much money as he could for his business, for his employees, for his family. And it's really disingenuous for these politicians and the critics to come out here and just try to talk about this and try to paint this man as if he's broke or something. And all of these claims are on hogwash. What they really need to be investigating, what New York Times really need to be investigating, is how Nancy Pelosi is worth like $80 to $100 million. How is that even possible? What they really need to be investigating is how these politicians come into office broke and then end up becoming rich. The real question is, how is Obama worth $40 million when he's been a politician his whole life, making a politician's salary? So making no more than $300,000 a year, $400 max when he was president. How is he worth $40 million? That's the real question. How are these politicians coming into office broke and then leaving rich? That's the real investigation that needs to be done. But see, they don't want to talk about that because the Democrats take advantage of that stuff and they're just as corrupt as they're claiming Trump to be. Matter of fact, they're even more corrupt. They're more corrupt. At least Trump did it through business. Trump didn't do it through taking advantage of being a part of the government, taking advantage of the people. Guys, this is nothing. All these articles are written by people who have no idea about accounting or the basics of financial services or investments, anything like that. If you talk to anybody that's probably an accountant that knows what they're talking about, they'll probably tell you that we don't know, that it is impossible to say Trump has done anything shady without actually looking at the whole picture in terms of the financial health of his companies and what is actually in his tax returns. But this is how the media works, guys. They're trying to pick off Trump with pop shots and all type of BS before the election. But as Republicans and conservatives, guys, this should be par for the course. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.